Good afternoon and welcome to this presentation on Getting Clear with Your Goals by Glenn Walker. Getting clear with your goals. It's a concept that I've come across on the internet that I wanted to present to everybody to get you thinking about different ways to motivate your teams and organize your teams to achieve success. Now, back in the 80s, a term called SMART was introduced. And we all talk about SMART goals, and you'll often find that even baked into a lot of our performance processes, this idea of having SMART goals. What does that really mean? Well, first of all, it means goals should be specific. They have to be clear and unambiguous. They should be understood when they're read so that everybody understands what the purpose of that goal is. They should be measurable. The results must be able to be measured in some significant way. How do we know we've achieved it if we don't have some sort of measurement available? They should be attainable. No sense setting goals that are unrealistic, that can't be attained. That just demotivates your team. They should be relevant. Goals should relate to the mission and vision of your team. So otherwise, if you try to put forward goals that don't relate to that, your team's not going to see why they should be engaged in that goal. So make sure your goals align with what you're trying to accomplish. And they should be time-bound. You don't want goals that will go on and on forever with no way to know that it's actually achieved any success. Give yourself a definite time period to work within to achieve your goals. Now, I would argue that that was great back in the 80s, but now the world has changed, and let's talk a little bit about what has changed. First of all, we live in a faster-paced, more agile world. That's obvious. Everything around us is going so much faster today. We often work in communities with both local and global focus. Today, it's very common for you to be working with people in your local community, but at the same time to be working with people across your country or in other countries around the world. It's just the way it is. And the tools that we have around us are evolving to help us work in new and different ways. Back in the 80s, they didn't have the tools we have today that made it possible to collaborate in new and different ways. So I would argue that we need methodologies that embrace this new reality of the world and how we are able to work today. So it's time to change our way of thinking, to take our thinking from the SMART way of thinking to what I'm going to call the clear way of thinking. We used to think it was good to be smart about goals, and a lot of organizations today still organize a lot of the work they do around this concept of SMART goals. But since the world has changed significantly, perhaps it's time for us to look at different ways to do what we do on a day-to-day basis. And maybe it's time for us to get clear about our goals. And so I'll introduce what clear means and why it's different. Just like SMART, clear is an acronym, each letter that representing a different concept. First of all, C is collaborative. Goals should encourage people to work together collaboratively and in teams. L is for limited. Goals should have a limited scope and duration. So again, we don't want to have run-on goals that go on forever. Emotional. This is a little bit different from the old days. We never really thought about this back in the 80s and when we developed the SMART goal concept. But the idea is that goals should make an emotional connection with people that taps into their energy and passion. If you can tap into the energy and passion of the people on your team, you're more likely to be successful than you are if you try to make them do things that they're really not interested in doing. Appreciable. Large goals should be broken down into smaller goals so that they can be accomplished more quickly and easily for long-term gain. And that's really the idea that if you've got a bigger vision, a bigger goal that you need to achieve, how can you break it down into smaller, accomplishable steps that can be done, that can be measured, and also that can help you to spot issues that might arise before they become big issues. And refinable. Make sure your goals are set, but at the same time, be aware of the reality that the world around us does not stand still while we work. We need to be ready to adjust. We need to be able to make a course correction if necessary. That doesn't mean that we change our goals on a whim, but it does mean we're aware of our surroundings, we're aware of what's going on, and we react appropriately when things change. So getting clear on your goals has some basic things that it means. First of all, think about setting goals that will engage the people around you. An engaged team will always be more successful than a team that doesn't really buy into the mission and the vision of the team. Make sure everyone understands the scope and time limits of your goals. So it is important to be clear that we want to accomplish certain things by certain dates, that we do want to make certain milestones, but that's something that we would do anyway. We want to make sure that we're clear on that. We want to make sure you engage your own passion and energy in accomplishing your goals. If your team sees you passionate about what's being done, that will be contagious and it will carry through to them as well. Break down the larger goals into smaller chunks so that you can see progress and issues early. And that's really what's important. In the world of Agile, I come from a world of Agile in computing, and we try to break all of our projects down into 2 to 3 week iterations that we call sprints. Do the same thing. Try to make sure that each of your goals have a very short time frame so that your team can accomplish it within a very short period of time. That way, if there are issues, they come up early, you can spot them and course correct for them. But at the same time, you can celebrate success on a continual basis, and that will help to motivate your team. And again, give yourself permission to adjust when it is needed. Again, it's not a license to be able to change course ad hoc, but it is a license to be aware of your surroundings and make course corrections as necessary. So that's getting clear with your goals. It's a very simple concept, but it's a different concept. It's a different way of working that really embraces the way we live our lives and work today. And hopefully, if you adopt this idea, you can get teams that work together on a more effective basis to accomplish the mission and vision of your team and get it done, have fun doing it, and accomplish great things.